September 14, 1944, Bavarian Alps Test Range, Germany. Test pilot Heini Dittmar's gloved fingers tightened on the Mi-163B Comet's wooden control stick. The plane sat on a wheeled dolly, its delta wing gleaming in the morning sun. Ground crew removed the last fuel caps, their rubber gloves crinkling as they stepped back. Dittmar flipped a red switch on the instrument panel. The HWK-109-509, a rocket engine behind him, sputtered, then roared, a high-pitched whine that shook the ground. Orange flame shot 3 meters from the exhaust, kicking up dust. The dolly's wheels screeched on the concrete runway as the Comet accelerated. In 10 seconds, it hit 200 kilometers per hour. In 30 seconds, 400 kilometers per hour. Dittmar's body pressed into the canvas seat, G-force squeezing his lungs as he pulled back on the stick. The plane climbed vertically, leaving the dolly behind to skid to a stop. At 6,000 meters, he leveled off, checking the speedometer, 850 kilometers per hour, faster than any bullet fired from a German infantry rifle. But as he reached 12,000 meters, the engine stuttered. A red warning light flashed on the panel. Fuel pressure critical. Dittmar glanced at the fuel gauge. It had dropped from half full to empty in 15 seconds. He knew what that meant. A leak in the T-stop line. The hydrogen peroxide fuel would eat through the plane's aluminum skin if it pooled. He had 30 seconds to bail out before the Comet became a fireball. This was the Comet's cruel paradox. A machine built to outrun death, yet more likely to kill its pilot than any enemy fighter. The Mi-163's origin stretched back to 1936, when the German Air Ministry, Reichsluftfahrtministerium, began funding secret rocket research. At the time, conventional fighters like the Messerschmitt Bf 109 relied on piston engines, powerful but limited by altitude. Above 8,000 meters, air density dropped, robbing engines of power. By 1940, Allied bombers, British Lancaster S and American B-17s, were flying at 9,000 meters or higher, beyond the reach of most German interceptors. The Luftwaffe needed a solution. Rocket power, which didn't depend on air, seemed the only way to reach those heights quickly. Dr. Alexander Lippisch, a former glider designer, had been experimenting with delta-wing aircraft since the 1920s. He believed the triangular wing shape, with no horizontal stabilizers, would cut through air with minimal drag, ideal for high speeds. In 1941, the Air Ministry gave Lippisch's team at Messerschmitt a contract to build a rocket-powered interceptor. The first prototype, the Mi-163A V1, flew on September 1, 1941, from Peenemünde, Germany's top-secret rocket facility on the Baltic coast. It had a wooden fuselage, a single HWK-RI 203 rocket engine, and a delta wing made of thin aluminum sheets. It reached 800 kilometers per hour in tests, but its flaws were fatal. The RII 203 ran on a mixture of hydrazine and hydrogen peroxide, chemicals that ignited on contact. In March 1942, test pilot Lothar Sieber crashed when the engine's fuel line ruptured. The plane exploded midair. Sieber's body was never fully recovered. Lippisch's team rebuilt the design from the ground up. The Mi-163B, unveiled in early 1943, had a fuselage of steel tubing wrapped in duralumin, an aluminum-copper alloy that was lighter than steel but twice as strong. The delta wing was reinforced with 12 steel ribs, each 10 millimeters thick, to handle the stress of vertical climbs. The engine was upgraded to the HWK-109-509A, which produced 1,700 kilograms of thrust, enough to push the 2.3-ton plane to 900 kilometers per hour, but the fuel system remained a nightmare. The 109-509, they used two separate fuels. T-Stoff, 80% hydrogen peroxide, 20% water, and C-Stoff, 60% hydrazine hydrate, 30% methanol, 10% water. When mixed, they ignited without a spark, a design choice that simplified the engine but made leaks catastrophic. A single drop of T-Stoff on skin caused third-degree burns. A leak in the fuel tank could blow the plane apart. Building the Mi-163B required precision no German factory had fully mastered. Messerschmitt's Augsburg plant handled fuselage assembly. Workers cut steel tubing into 1 meter lengths, welded them into a cage-like frame, and riveted duralumin sheets over the top. The sheets had to be perfectly flat. Even a 1 millimeter bump would increase drag at high speeds. Workers used handheld grinders to smooth every rivet head. The wings were built at a separate facility in Regensburg. They started as a core of balsa wood, wrapped in 2 layers of aluminum. The leading edge was reinforced with a strip of steel, 5 centimeters wide, to prevent damage from bird strikes or ice. Each wing took 40 hours to build, with inspectors checking for cracks 3 times before it left the plant. The engine, built by Helmuth Walter Commanded Gesellschaft, HWK, in Kiel, was even more complex. The 109-509, they had 12 fuel valves, each machined to tolerances of 0.01 millimeters. The combustion chamber, where T-Stoff and C-Stoff mixed, was lined with copper to withstand temperatures of 2,500 degrees Celsius. Workers tested each engine for 20 minutes on a stand before shipping, pumping T-Stoff and C-Stoff through the system to check for leaks. Even so, 1 in 5 engines failed their first test. The Mi-163BS cockpit was a study in minimalism. The pilot sat on a seat filled with horsehair, secured by a leather harness with 4 straps. The instrument panel had 12 gauges. Airspeed marked up to 1,000 km per hour, altitude up to 15,000 meters, fuel pressure for T-Stoff and C-Stoff, engine temperature, and a compass. There was no radio. Adding one would have weighed 5 kilograms, too much for plane's limited lift. Pilots communicated with ground control using red and green signal flares stored under the seat. The plane had no landing gear, only a retractable steel skid under the fuselage. To take off, it was mounted on a wheeled dolly, 2 meters long, made of steel, that dropped away once the plane reached 250 kilometers per hour. To land, the pilot glided at 300 kilometers per hour onto a runway covered in 1 meter of sawdust, which slowed the plane to a stop in 100 meters. Testing the Mi-163B began in February 1943 at Peenemünde. The Luftwaffe handpicked pilots with experience in high-speed aircraft. Most had flown Bf-109s or Focke-Wulf FW-190s for at least 500 hours. The first test pilot, Wolfgang Spate, described his first flight as riding a lightning bolt. The plane accelerated so fast that Spate blacked out for 3 seconds during takeoff. When he regained consciousness, he was at 8,000 meters, the Baltic Sea sparkling below. He leveled off at 700 kilometers per hour, but the controls felt stiff. The thin air at high altitude made the ailerons, wing flaps returning, hard to move. Spate learned to make small, slow adjustments. A quick flick of the stick would send the plane into a spin. If you found this interesting, give it a thumbs up to show your support. Drop "Oh, wonderful" in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Stick around till the end, because I reveal 3 mind-blowing facts you won't want to miss. Haven't followed yet? Hit that follow button so you won't miss our next deep dive. Trust me, the best is yet to come. Accidents started within weeks. In March 1943, test pilot Heinz Kench crashed during landing. The skid caught on a patch of ice, and the plane flipped onto its back. Kench broke 3 ribs and a collarbone, but survived. In April, pilot Walter Teal was not so lucky. His plane's T-Stoff tank ruptured during a climb. The fuel mixed with C-Stoff in the fuselage, and the plane exploded at 6,000 meters. Debris, pieces of derailment, engine parts, even Teal's flight helmet, fell over a 2-kilometer area. An investigation found that a fuel line had cracked due to vibration from the engine. Lippish's team added rubber sleeves to all fuel lines, but the fix was temporary. The sleeves degraded after 10 flights, leaving the lines vulnerable again. By June 1943, the Mi-163B had flown 50 test flights, but only 30 had landed safely. The Luftwaffe's high command was divided. Some officers wanted to cancel the project, calling it a death trap for pilots. Others argued that the plane's speed, twice as fast as a Bf-109, made it worth the risk. With Allied bombers hitting Berlin every week, Hitler weighed in. He ordered 1,000 Mi-163Bs built, with the first operational unit to be ready by October 1943. The unit, Jagerschwader 400 JG400, was based at Bad Zwischenau, a small airfield in northern Germany. It had 30 planes and 40 pilots, most of who were transferred from frontline fighter units. Training began in August 1943 at Peenemünde. Pilots started with 5 hours of glider training. The Mi-163B glided like a large delta-wing glider when its engine was off, then moved to the comet itself. The first lesson was speed control. Pilots flew at 600 kilometers per hour in level flight, learning to keep the plane stable. The second lesson was vertical climbs, reaching 8,000 meters in 90 seconds, then gliding back down. The third lesson, landing, was the deadliest. Without flaps, the plane had no way to slow down except the sawdust runway. Pilots had to approach at 300 kilometers per hour, then lower the skid and hit the sawdust at exactly 250 kilometers per hour. Too fast, and the plane would skid off the runway. Too slow, and it would stall and crash. In September 1943, 3 pilots died in landing crashes. One pilot, Herbert Muller, missed the sawdust and skidded into a fence. The plane's fuel tank ruptured, and he burned to death before ground crew could reach him. JG-400's first combat mission was on May 14, 1944. 6 Mi-163Bs were scrambled to intercept a formation of 120B, 17 flying fortresses heading for Berlin. The alarm sounded at 8:15, and the pilots ran to their planes. Ground crew had pre-fueled the comets, a process that took 45 minutes, as T-Stoff and C-Stoff had to be pumped into separate tanks to avoid mixing. At 8:30, the first comet took off, its engine roaring as it climbed. Pilot Joachim Ziegler was in the third plane. He felt the G-force push his head back as he reached 10,000 meters in 7 minutes. Below, he saw the B-17s, a dark cluster of planes flying in a tight formation. Ziegler flipped the engine to full thrust, diving at 800 kilometers per hour. He aimed for the lead B-17, firing his 230 million Malawian kwaches, 108 cannons. The cannons fired 65 rounds per minute, each shell packed with high explosive incendiary material. He hit the B-17's left wing. Fuel poured out and the wing caught fire. The bomber dipped to the side, then plummeted toward the ground. Ziegler pulled up, climbing back to 12,000 meters to prepare for another attack. But his T-stop gauge was empty. The engine had burned through 900 liters of fuel in 8 minutes. He glided back to Bad Schwischen, landing safely in the sawdust runway. It was a Mi-163BS first confirmed kill, but the mission was a mixed success. 4 of the 6 Comets aborted. Pilot Herbert Schaub's engine cut out at 6,000 meters. He bailed out and landed behind enemy lines, where he was captured by American troops. Pilot Gunter Lutzo's T-stop line leaked, and he had to land in a field. The plane's skid broke, but he survived. Pilot Rudolf Opitz's T-stop tank developed a leak, and he returned to base with smoke pouring from the fuselage. The Luftwaffe's after-action report noted the kill, but criticized the plane's unacceptable reliability rate. HWK was ordered to fix the fuel system within a month. The company responded by adding mesh filters to the T-stop lines to catch debris that could clog valves and thickening the rubber sleeves around the lines. But the fixes didn't eliminate leaks. They only reduced them. June 1944 brought the D-Day invasion, and JG-400 was redeployed to France. The unit was based at Le Bourget airfield near Paris, tasked with intercepting Allied fighter bombers attacking German troops in Normandy. The Mi-163BS short range, just 80 kilometers, became a critical flaw. A Comet could fly from Le Bourget to the Normandy coast in 6 minutes, attack once, and then glide back. There was no time to loiter or chase targets. Pilots called this one pass, one kill. If they missed, they had to return to base. On June 20th, 1944, pilot Heinz Barr took off to intercept a group of P-47 Thunderbolts. He spotted the P-47s at 5,000 meters, dived at 750 kilometers per hour, and fired. He missed, and his fuel ran out seconds later. He glided back to Le Bourget, but the runway was under attack by Allied fighters. He landed in a field, crashing into a haystack. The skid bent, but he walked away unharmed. Accidents continued to mount. In July 1944, pilot Walter Schuck died when his plane's engine exploded during a climb. The explosion was traced to a faulty fuel valve that had been installed backwards. HWK recalled all valves and retrained workers to install them correctly, but the damage was done. By August 1944, JG-400 had lost 15 pilots, 10 to fuel explosions, 5 to landing crashes. The unit's strength dropped from 30 planes to 12. Pilots began to fear the Comet more than enemy fighters. One pilot, Erich Hartmann, later the top German ace of World War II, refused to fly the plane, calling it a suicide machine. The Mi-163BS worst flaw was its fuel. T-stop was highly corrosive. If it leaked onto the plane's aluminum skin, it ate through the metal in minutes. Pilots wore special suits made of neoprene rubber, thick, heavy, and hot, to protect themselves. But even small spills were dangerous. In September 1944, pilot Karl-Heinz Schnell was refueling his Comet when a drop of T-stop fell on his wrist. He screamed as the chemical burned through his glove and into his skin. Ground crew rushed him to the airfield's medical tent, where doctors had to cut away a layer of skin to stop the burn. Schnell survived, but was medically discharged from JG-400. The plane's speed also created unexpected problems. At 800 kilometers per hour, the air rushing over the wings created compressibility effects, a phenomenon where air molecules piled up in front of the plane, making the controls unresponsive. Pilots called this the wall. At a certain speed, the stick would freeze, and the plane would dive uncontrollably. To fix this, Lippisch's team added small air brakes to the wings, panels that popped out to increase drag. The air brake slowed the plane to 600 kilometers per hour during attacks, giving pilots more time to aim. But they added 30 kilograms to the plane's weight, reducing its climb rate by 10%. By late 1944, Germany's industrial base was collapsing. Allied bombers hit Messerschmitt's Augsburg factory on October 14, 1944, destroying half the Mi-163B production line. HWK's Kiel plant was hit on November 2nd, halting engine production. JG-400 received just 20 new comets in the last 3 months of 1944. Pilots had to reuse old planes, often flying with faulty engines or patch fuel tanks. On December 5, 1944, pilot Gunther Kirchner flew a comet with a leaking T-stop line. He attacked AB-24 Liberator, hitting its tail, but the leak worsened. The plane caught fire midair, and Kirchner bailed out. His parachute opened just 100 meters above the ground. He survived but broke his leg on impact. The unit's last major mission was on March 18, 1945. 8 comets took off to intercept a formation of B-24s heading for Hamburg. Pilot Joachim Ziegler, the same pilot who had scored the comet's first kill, hit AB-24's engine, causing it to crash. But his plane's Seestoff tank leaked, and he had to glide back to base. Only 3 comets returned safely. The other 5 were lost, 2 to fuel explosions, 2 to landing crashes, 1 to enemy anti-aircraft fire. By April 1945, JG-400 was disbanded. The remaining planes were destroyed by ground crew to prevent them from falling into Allied hands. Pilots were reassigned to fly BF-109s or FW-190s, planes they consider safe compared to the Comet. The Mi-163BS combat record was modest. 16 confirmed kills, 10 probable kills. But it cost 30 pilots their lives, nearly 1 pilot per kill. After the war, Allied forces captured Mi-163B prototypes and technical documents. American engineers tested the plane at Wright Field in Ohio. They found that the HWK 109-509A engine was surprisingly advanced. Its combustion chamber design influenced later rocket engines for NASA's Mercury program. But the fuel system was deemed unacceptably risky for operational use. British engineers tested the plane at Farnborough Airfield, concluding that the Delta Wing was ahead of its time, but that rocket power was not suitable for fighters. Dr. Alexander Lippisch fled Germany in 1945, moving to the United States to work for Convair, an American aircraft manufacturer. His Delta Wing designs influenced the Convair F-102 Delta Dagger, a Cold War fighter that used a jet engine instead of rocket, eliminating the fuel risk. Lippisch never spoke publicly about the Mi-163BS flaws, but in private letters, he admitted that we rushed the plane into production too soon. Safety was sacrificed for speed. The Mi-163BS pilots are remembered in Germany as tragic figures. A memorial at Bad Zwischenahn Airfield, dedicated in 1964, honors the 30 pilots who died flying the Comet. The memorial is a 3-meter-tall stone delta wing, with the names of the pilots carved into its surface. Every year on May 14th, the date of the Comet's first kill, veterans and families gather to lay flowers. One of the attendees is Heinz Barr, the pilot who was burned by T-Stoff. "We flew it because we had to," he told a reporter in 1984. "But none of us wanted to." Today, only 12 Mi-163BS survive in museums around the world. One is on display at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. Its duralumin fuselage is dented from landing skids, its wings scarred by bullet holes from a test firing. A plaque next to it reads, Messerschmitt Me-163B Comet, the fastest fighter of World War II. It outran bullets, but killed 30 of its 40 pilots. Another is on display at the Deutsches Technikmuseum in Berlin, where visitors can see the separate T-Stoff and C-Stoff tanks, small, cylindrical containers that look harmless, but once held chemicals that could kill in seconds. The Me-163BS legacy is a cautionary tale about technological overreach. It was a breakthrough in aviation, the first rocket-powered fighter to see combat, the first plane to break 900 kilometers per hour in level flight. But it was also a failure of engineering ethics. German engineers knew the fuel system was dangerous. They had tested it and seen pilots die. Yet they continued to build the plane, driven by Hitler's demand for a wonder weapon to turn the war. The Comet was not a victim of bad luck. It was a victim of desperation. In the decades after World War II, rocket power was abandoned in fighters. Jet engines offered more range, more safety, and more reliability. Delta wings became common, used in planes like the Concorde supersonic airliner and the F-16 Fighting Falcon, but they were paired with jet engines, not rockets. The Me-163BS' only lasting contribution was its wing design. Its rocket engine was consigned to history as a dead end. The Comet story also speaks to the cost of innovation in war. In peacetime, engineers have time to test and refine designs, to fix flaws before lives are lost. In war, time is a luxury. The Me-163B was built in a hurry by a country losing the war, and its pilots paid the price. As one American engineer wrote in a 1946 report on the plane, the Comet was a brilliant idea, but it was an idea executed by people who had run out of time. When visitors to the Smithsonian look at the Me-163B, they often marvel at its speed, at its sleek delta wing, at the audacity of building a rocket-powered fighter. But few notice the small plaque that lists the pilots who died. Those names are the Comet's true legacy, a reminder that even the most impressive technology is worthless if it kills the people it's supposed to protect. The Me-163B could outrun bullets, but it could not outrun its own flaws. In the end, that was its fatal mistake.